Tonight on the program, as Thailand becomes an aging society, we look at some of the problems that these elders have to deal with and how people are preparing for their retirement, if at all. Then we have an exclusive interview with the President of the UN General Assembly about what constitutes a sustainable post-pandemic economic recovery. And a luxurious yacht exhibition to attract wealthy tourists to Thailand. สวัสดีค่ะ I'm Nabunag and welcome to This Week with Thai PBS World. This year, Thailand will officially become an aging society where 20% of the entire population are people aged 60 and over. But what has been done to ensure a better quality of life of these people? According to the Department of Provincial Administration, 12.1 million people in Thailand are aged 60 and over. That accounts for 18.3% of the entire population of 66.1 million. Secretary of the Foundation of Thai Gerontology Research and Development Institute, Dr. Pusit Prakongsai, explained that in 2022, Thailand will formally become an aging society with 20% of the entire population over 60 years old. Also in 2031, Thailand will become a super-aged society in which 28% of the population will be in the senior bracket. Meanwhile, Professor Dr. Warawe Suwandada from the Faculty of Economics at Chulalongkorn University explained that the biggest problems facing this age group now are their income, which is insufficient for their daily expenses, a lack of health insurance, and unsuitable living conditions. He noted that most elderly people do not have a higher education, do not know how to access their welfare rates, and existing policies do not serve their needs. He also predicted that in the next 20 years, we will see more elderly people who are single and without children. Therefore, more policies should be implemented to cover 7 types of elderly people, namely those who are handicapped, have dementia, are homeless, poor, stateless, those who relocated, and those who are gender diverse. Returning to Bangkok, Chatta Sithipan, who recently won the gubernatorial election by a landslide, has come up with some policies to ensure a better quality of life for the elderly population. One of them being the establishment of more seniors clubs to create more recreational and health-related opportunities for the elderly. He also wants to provide more jobs for the elderly who are still eager to make a living, such as assisting first-time mothers or working as community volunteers. He also plans to expand the 10,000-bed hospital project to improve accessibility to quality healthcare and enhance telemedicine as well. Recently, the Thai government has announced the increase of special subsidies for the elderly who receive the state pension in the fiscal year of 2022. However, many of the senior citizens who do not have other sources of income are actually struggling living by these state subsidies.
Thais have an average life expectancy of 73.5 years old for men and 80.5 years for women. And the trend has been increasing every year. As Thai people live longer, some private companies have begun to allow their elderly staff to retire at 65 rather than 60. This 60-year-old lady works at a cleaning company. She plans to continue working here until reaching the full retirement age at 65.
65 ก็คือบริษัทเลิกจ้างแล้วค่ะแล้ว65จะทำอะไรต่อคะ
อยู่บ้านก็รับปารับแก้ก็กินเงินบำนาญด้วยค่ะ
เงินบำนาญเดือนละเท่าไหร่คะ
เดือนละ1,700ค่ะก็เงินสูงอายุก็600ค่ะ2,300
รับปะเสื้อผ้า
ค่ะ
ได้สัก 3,000
ค่ะ
ก็จะเป็น 5,300
ค่ะ
ประมาณนั้นต่อเดือนนะคะ
ค่ะ
แล้วคิดว่าจะหยุดเลิกทำงานเด็ดขาดตอนอายุเท่าไหร่คะ
ก็ทำไปเรื่อยๆค่ะคือไม่อยากหยุดค่ะ
ำไมถึงไม่อยากหยุดคะ
ก็พอทำได้อยู่ก็ทำไปเรื่อยๆค่ะ
What is the best way to prepare oneself for retirement? Apart from keeping healthy, you should have enough money in your bank account. If you will retire at 65 and probably live until the age of 80, it means you should have enough saving to cover all the expenses for 15 years. This is the retirement saving formula suggested by the Bank of Thailand. In reality, the majority of Thai elderly don't have those kinds of savings. Traditionally, they rely upon their offspring. For single and childless elderly person like Panoi, she has small financial support from the state, which is not enough to survive.
ทีนี้ถ้าป้าหน่อยไม่ทำงานแล้วถ้าเกิดมีเหตุฉุกเฉินเกิดขึ้นที่เราไม่ได้ทำงานเราจะมีรายได้จากอะไรบ้างคะ
ก็มีค่าที่เราขายของที่เขาจะมาส่งเวลาป้ารับแก้ละค่ะก็เพิ่มไปอีกค่ะ
ในกรณีที่สมมติว่าป้าหน่อยไม่สบายเจ็บป่วยฉุกเฉินสามารถที่จะมีเงินสำรองที่จะอยู่เฉยๆได้กี่ปีคะ
มีไม่เยอะค่ะ
ได้มีแผนสำรองส่วนนี้ไหมคะเช่นว่าเราจะต้องได้มีเป้าไหมว่าเราจะต้องมีเงินเก็บเท่านั้นเท่านี้ในช่วงอายุเท่านี้อะไรอย่างเงี้ย
อ๋อไม่ได้คิดค่ะ
What's happening to Panoy is a recurring reality for many elderly who've been working hard all their lives. Despite the productivity, retirement has become a luxury that a large number of Thais cannot afford. Economist Tipakon Jititikunchai told Thai PBS World that it's just impossible for Thai people to stop working.
When calculate from their household income, consumption and loan repayment, so it is quite difficult that we can expect them to saving for retirement. We have the evidence to show that the labor wage cannot grow at the same pace as the inflation. So basically, their income cannot catch up with the living cost.
A national pension scheme can be a way out of these. It's not only about the survival of the elderly, but it could be meaningful for the economy too.
We have to think about the national pension system as a social protection scheme, not the assistance program for the poor. It is the right for people to have this protection as well as we have the UHC or Universal Health Scheme, Universal Health Care Coverage.
Though experts insist that Social Security is the basic right, some people may argue it's a populist policy which Thailand cannot afford. Tipakon, however, maintains that the problem of budgeting is already there. It's a problem to be solved, not to be avoided.
The status quo scenario, the budget protection is quite worrisome because it will increase very fast because of the pressure from the pension for the civil servants. So government have to find more revenue to pay for this kind of burden anyway. So why don't we take this opportunity to trying to use the wealth redistribution tax, or we can even increase the VAT. So increase the VAT, but use the money that we have more direct to the social welfare of people.
And it looks like these people are still struggling to make ends meet. And now that we understand the struggles that the elderly have to go through, now let's have a look at how many Thai people are actually preparing for their retirement.
Thailand is now already considered to be an aging society. Under the income support policy in Thailand, people aged between 60 and 69 receive a monthly allowance of 600 baht. Those aged between 70 and 79 receive 700 baht. Those who are 80 to 89 receive 800 baht. A monthly allowance of 1,000 baht will be offered to people aged 90 and over. While some say this is better than nothing, some argue that it is not nearly enough.
ดิฉันคิดว่าไม่พอนะคะเพราะว่าข้อหนึ่งเนี่ยตั้งแต่เริ่มแรกก็คือว่ารัฐบาลต้องให้การศึกษากับคนทุกคนเลยนะคะว่าเราต้องเตรียมตัวสำหรับสูงอายุยังไงการศึกษาเรื่องของการใช้เงินนะคะอันที่สองก็คือเรื่องสวัสดิการทางด้านสุขภาพต่างๆอันนี้ดิฉันคิดว่าสำคัญมากค่ะตอนนี้เรามีบัตรทองหรือว่าบัตรการรักษาฟรีก็ดีนะคะแต่ว่าคิดว่ายังไม่พอค่ะการที่รัฐบาลมีเงินสำหรับผู้สูงอายุใช่ไหมคะส่วนหนึ่งก็ยังไงมันก็ไม่พอค่ะผู้สูงอายุส่วนใหญ่ปัญหาส่วนใหญ่คือปัญหาสุขภาพนะคะก็อยากให้รัฐบาลเข้ามาดูแลสุขภาพของประชาชนสูงอายุค่ะเช่นอาจจะมีบริการที่เป็นบริการพื้นฐานในการดูแลสุขภาพการเจ็บป่วยของผู้สูงอายุให้มากกว่านี้ค่ะถึงแม้จะมีบัตรทองนะคะแต่ก็ไม่ได้ทุกคนนะคะ
ผมว่าอันดับแรกสุดอาจจะต้องมองในเรื่องเกี่ยวกับการสนับสนุนเรื่องของการออมเงินนะฮะคืออาจจะเป็นแนวนโยบายที่มีการพูดกันเยอะแต่ว่ายังไม่ได้ลงมือปฏิบัติจริงๆ2สิ่งที่จะต้องดูจริงๆจังเรื่องเกี่ยวกับบัตรทุนหน้าหรือก็เรียกอะไรนะประกันสุขภาพสวาบทุนหน้าหรือนโยบายแรงต่างที่จะซัพพอร์ตให้กับผู้สูงอายุมากกว่านี้กับ3อาจจะต้องมีลักษณะของการยืดเวลาของการเกษียณให้มากขึ้นกว่านี้ซึ่งหนึ่งนั่นจะเป็นตัวที่จะช่วยให้คนที่อยู่ในวัยแรงงานเนี่ยยังมีเวลาเก็บออมเงินได้มากกว่า
So when the support from the government is not there, preparing themselves financially and physically is the best way to go.
ก็เตรียมเงินกับเตรียมร่างกายนะคะก็คือว่าเงินเนี่ยพี่ก็จะแบ่งเป็น3ก้อนก็คือว่าเงินสำหรับระยะยาวแล้วก็สำหรับระยะสั้นเผื่อฉุกเฉินนะคะแล้วก็อีกส่วนหนึ่งก็เพื่อค่ารักษาพยาบาลนะคะส่วนร่างกายเตรียมร่างกายคือว่าพยายามดูแลสุขภาพให้ดีแล้วก็มีการออกกำลังกายคือพออายุจาก40ปีเนี่ยเราจะต้องพยายามไม่เป็นหนี้นะคะหรือว่าถ้าเรามีหนี้อะไรต้องจ่ายให้หมดนอกจากเรื่องเงินก็พยายามรักษาสุขภาพมากขึ้นนะคะแต่ก่อนกินใช้อะไรก็ไม่ค่อยรักษาตัวแต่ว่าถ้าเกิดเราจะต้องอยู่อีก 20-30 ปีตอนนี้เราต้องพยายามดูแลตัวเองให้เดินได้ระวังเข่าแล้วก็ไม่กินอาหารมากเกินไปค่ะ
อันดับแรกสุดเลยก็คือเรื่องของการออมเงินก็คิดว่าในระยะเวลาที่ยังพอมีแรงอยู่นะครับจาก50ไปจนถึง60กว่าเนี่ยผมเชื่อว่าณตอนนั้นถ้าเราจริงจังกับเรื่องของการออมเนี่ยก็ยังพอที่จะเอาตัวรอดหรือว่าเลี้ยงดูตัวเองได้ในยามวัยแก่ชราได้ก็2อีกอย่างนึงก็คือต้องดูแลเรื่องเกี่ยวกับสุขภาพตัวเองมากขึ้นและ3ก็คือทำประกันในเรื่องเกี่ยวกับดูแลสุขภาพแล้วก็ประกันอุบัติเหตุหรืออะไรต่างๆครอบคลุมไว้
A nursing home is one option for the elderly where they can live with assistance. But many Thais don't like the idea of it. They believe the quality of nursing homes doesn't meet their needs. Some do not even consider it as an option, as they seek to stay in their own home during their old age. For many, they look at a nursing home as an option for those who are abandoned by their families.
คือพี่ไม่ได้นึกถึงบ้านพักคนชราเลยนะคะเพราะว่าคือเรามีบ้านอยู่แล้วใช่ไหมคะเราก็ไม่อยากไปอยู่ตรงนั้นเพราะว่ามีความรู้สึกว่าบ้านพักคนชราเป็นสภาพที่ไม่น่าอยู่สำหรับคนชราค่ะอยากจะให้บ้านพักคนชรามีสภาพแวดล้อมที่ดีนะคะให้คนแก่เนี่ยสามารถที่จะอยู่แล้วก็มีแรงบันดาลใจในการทำสิ่งต่างๆได้ไม่ใช่อยู่เฉยๆอะค่ะส่วนตัวคิดว่าไม่อยากไปอยู่ค่ะแต่อนาคตคงจะได้ไปอยู่อะค่ะเพราะว่าไม่มีลูกหลานนะคะ
บ้านพักคนชราที่มีอยู่เนี่ยมันเหมือนเขาทำให้เขาถูกทอดทิ้งฉะนั้นเรื่องของการจัดให้มีบ้านพักคนชราเนี่ยในประเทศไทยเนี่ยผมว่าอันดับแรกสุดต้องทำให้คุณภาพของบ้านพักคนชราเนี่ยมันเอื้อประโยชน์ต่อครอบครัวของคนที่มีผู้สูงอายุให้เขารู้สึกว่าถ้าเกิดเขาพาผู้สูงอายุไปอยู่แล้วเนี่ยมันเหมือนเป็นบ้านที่2ให้เขารู้สึกสบายใจและเป็นที่อยู่ที่ผู้สูงอายุพร้อมที่จะไปอยู่ได้โดยรู้สึกว่าไม่ได้ถูกทอดทิ้ง
Kiti Pachan Suktit reporting for Thai PBS World.
And now let's have a look at the other stories in our weekly roundup.
The Ministry of Public Health will consider relaxing the mandatory wearing of face masks in public in some areas tentatively by the middle of June, as Thailand moves towards reclassifying COVID-19 as an endemic disease, possibly in July. However, people over 60, those who have underlying diseases, and pregnant women will still be strongly advised to wear face masks in public. Wearing masks will also be strongly advised in closed venues which are not adequately ventilated and in venues where many people are gathering. Thailand has asked the World Health Organization, or WHO, for support in providing smallpox vaccine as a precautionary measure against monkeypox. Thailand has no reserves of smallpox vaccine because the virus was eradicated from the globe several decades ago. Overseas arrivals from countries where monkeypox infections have been detected are now screened for symptoms by health officials at Thailand's international airport. They are then issued with a health beware notice in QR code form. Investors who trade cryptocurrencies or digital tokens through properly registered exchanges will be entitled to a 7% VAT exemption on the transfer of the digital asset, retroactively from April 1st of this year until December 31st of next year. The exemption is also extended to trade in the retail central bank digital currency, or CBDC, issued by the Bank of Thailand for the same period. The move is to promote trade in cryptocurrencies or digital tokens through Thailand's approved exchanges for proper regulation of digital asset transaction.
And now on to our exclusive interviews. The 78th session of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, or UNSCAP, is held at the UN Conference Center in Bangkok throughout this week. And recently, Hatay Teshikit Tiranan talked to the President of the United Nations General Assembly, who attended this conference as well, about what constitutes a sustainable post-pandemic economic recovery and the role and relevance of the UN.
Chair of the 78th session of the Commission. For the positions of Vice President.
The President of the UNGA, Abdullah Shahid, who was in Bangkok briefly to mark the 75th anniversary of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, or ESCAP, shared with Thai PBS World what needs to be done to push sustainable post-pandemic economic recovery. Coming from the Maldives, which is a tourism-reliant country like Thailand, he emphasized the need for greater provision of assistance to developing countries.
When the globe shuts down, it's the tourism industry that is worst hit, and that made many countries, including my own country, from a middle-income country to a no-income country. And that is how challenging it was for the small countries and the developing countries to revive. We need substantial assistance, and that suspension initiative itself is not enough. Over 554 billion SDRs issued, and only 5.5 billion has been made available to the developing countries. There needs to be more equal opportunity for developing countries. Without access to finance, developing countries, we would never be able to catch up. The impact that COVID-19 pandemic and now crisis in Ukraine is having on these countries can only be overcome by specific measures targeted to assist them, and that is not happening. Rather, it is always the developed countries who get the more opportunities.
Highlighting interconnectivity and the importance of international cooperation, Mr. Shahid said Thailand has been on the right track in sustainable post-pandemic recovery.
One thing we have learned during this pandemic is that no country will be able to survive by its own. That no one is safe until everyone is safe. And Thai government has been in the forefront of assisting other countries. It did assist the Maldives, for example. So it is on the right track in recovery, because I believe Thai government recognizes the fact that it is not only about Thailand, but it is with the rest of the world as well. So what you have, you share. What you don't, you obtain from others.
On the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, which has seen thousands killed, sent millions fleeing, and disrupted the global economy, Mr. Abdullah urged peace negotiations while remaining hopeful for an improvement in the situation.
We need a peaceful, negotiated solution as early as possible. We need to make sure that all of us, each and every country, respects a rules-based international order. The threat does not limit itself to international peace and security. It spreads the effects of the war into food security, into energy security, financial security. So such a situation is detrimental to everyone. I advocated for a presidency of hope because I'm an optimist and I want to bring that element of hope to a hopeless situation. That is a message I have requested world leaders to convey. And I'm happy to know that the message of hope is being heard in many parts of the world.
Acknowledging the limitations of the UN's roles in ensuring peace and security, as it is only an intergovernmental body, not a supranational one, and several UN resolutions are non-binding, Mr. Shahid believes the system can still improve.
The United Nations was formed to avoid wars. Have we been able to achieve it? The simple answer would be no. But if we look deep into it, yes, we have been able to avoid many wars. We have been able to avoid many deaths. We have been able to put in positive development many things we have been able to do. But would we be able to do better? Yes. The only option that we have is multilateralism. The only option we have is peaceful negotiations and peaceful settlement of disputes. I don't see a better option as of yet. So the failures of the United Nations should be taken in that context, that the member states, I always believe, has the capacity to do better.
Hatay Deshakituranan reporting for Thai PBS World.
And now let's move on to some lighter stories. With the Russian-Ukraine conflict that is still going on, many countries have held activities to show solidarity with Ukraine. One of them was a concert that was recently held in Bangkok. Let's find out more with Kanyanat Teshot Asani.
Melody, the music composed by Miroslav Skolik, a famous Ukrainian composer, captures everything. Julie Jacek, a Ukrainian musician, is performing with Marcin Sawecki, the cellist from Poland. While Julia's family is facing hard situation from Russia-Ukraine tension. Her 65-year-old mother ran away from home, hiding in the basement of the church. On the 8th day, her mother left Ukraine and is safe now in Europe. But some members of her family are still living in Ukraine.
I believe that music is the strongest, powerful weapon, and so many messages can be sent through the music. So we decided to choose Ukrainian composers and Ukrainian anthem to actually gather people. And this music piece was quite powerful to actually, it's kind of like the soul of Ukraine. This music is so strong, it represents the soul of the Ukrainian person.
In March, Skolik's music was used in the presentation that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky showed to the US Congress. Images comparing before and after the Russian invasion were recognized around the world. In May, Skolik music was performed in Bangkok. Against the backdrop of images, showed help the Ukraine get from Poland and Lithuania. The concert, held in solidarity with Ukraine, brings together musicians from Thailand, Poland, Ukraine, and international musicians to play famous classics.
Okay. Actually, initial idea was to organize our Constitutional Day on May 3rd. But then we decided in the current situation, in current circumstances, in such a sad and dramatic and tragic situation in Ukraine, we decided that we have to organize something in solidarity with Ukraine. So we decided to organize this concert devoted to Ukraine.
Poland has so far taken more than 2 million refugees from Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands more has also streamed into Russia, Hungary, Slovakia, Moldova, and Romania. Polish authorities said more than 123,000 refugees has been given the ID numbers, including more than 1,000 each day in Warsaw, since the program was launched. Kanyanat Teshot Asani, reporting for Thai PBS World.
And now let's talk about Thailand's tourism. Recently, there has been a special event related to luxurious yachts. And this is actually an aim to attract more wealthy tourists, both domestically and internationally. Let's find out more with Tulip Naksomphop Lau.
%7 value-added tax is a relatively low rate compared to most of Europe, where its average is about 20%. Nonetheless, 7% on a $100 million yacht is something that has kept super yachts away from Thai waters and marinas for quite some time, according to yacht show organizer Andy Treadwell. That is, however, changing. Not the law itself, but how it is interpreted, with the support of the Revenue Department. If a super yacht that wants to enter Thailand temporarily, its owner does not need to pay the 7% tax anymore. They just have to pay revenue tax at a rate which, Andy said, is acceptable to every yacht owner in the world.
So what's changed is exactly that. We managed to persuade everybody to understand that for the collective good, don't charge VAT, allow the boat to come in temporarily. It's an old law that doesn't have to be changed. We just have a fiscal representative who represents the business on behalf of the yacht, takes full responsibility for the boat, and collects tax on the revenue. So that's what's changed. Now, no more VAT on importing the boat, no more VAT on the value of the boat, just VAT and a very small amount of income tax on the revenue that you earn. And this is acceptable to every yacht owner in the world.
According to the Marine Department, Thailand has 13 tourist ports, which can be classified as marinas, with 8 situated along the Andaman coast, 4 in the eastern region, and 1 in the western province of Prachuap Khiri Khan. People who travel by yacht are known to have high purchasing power, which means tourism along the coastline will get a boost. To accommodate the 200 super yachts Andy hopes to see arriving in the next few years, Thailand still needs better infrastructure as more super yachts actually come. Infrastructure aside, repeat visitors such as this Australian yacht owner, who has been to Phuket many times, say they are drawn back by the charm of Phuket itself.
Very friendly people. The services are great, the facilities and the marinas, and the people are very welcoming, so we enjoy coming here.
It seems that Thailand is in a very good spot for yacht tourism. Giving all the yachts that come in will generate revenue for the locals, create jobs during their stay, and hopefully spend freely.
Thailand is a cruising destination bar none. It is, with the Andaman Sea going all the way up to Myanmar and down to Langkawi, you've got a huge destination, very beautiful, very untouched. Not many boats have ever been there. And then on the other side, Gulf of Siam, again, you've got some spectacular islands. That's why I'm splitting the show into 2. And then along the coast from the Gulf of Siam side, we have Cambodia, Vietnam, all the way up to Hainan.
In Andy's view, Thailand should not look at neighbors such as Singapore as a competitor, but rather as a collaborator or a partner, because Singapore is more of a business hub, although it is a tourism destination, but not for yachting. Pattaya is to host the Thailand Yacht Show next month, and for Andy, the event is an opportunity to promote Thailand's super yacht tourism, By the end of this year, Phuket will host another yacht show. Tulip Naksompoplak reporting for Thai PBS World.
That's definitely interesting indeed. And we'll be leaving you tonight with the best of Chattat Sittipan from his landslide win at the gubernatorial elections last Sunday and his first mission as the Bangkok governor-elect. And that wraps up tonight's edition of This Week with Thai PBS World. Join us every Friday at 10:30 p.m. only on Thai PBS. And don't forget to follow us on social media, including our website, thaipbsworld.com, for all the latest updates as well as analyses. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. สวัสดีค่ะ